In addition to the additive color synthesis model, there's also the subtractive model. Subtractive mixing is older, and it reflects the age-old accumulated experience of humankind with the use of color dyes and other pigment-based colors. It is used to this day in the printing industry, more specifically the CMYK model, which stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and key, or black. Notice that yellow is a primary color in subtractive mixing, whereas in additive mixing it is green instead. If you get green from mixing yellow and blue pigment-based color, that is because they are partly made of green, not because green is made of yellow and blue. Meaning that any two colors either pass or block a certain amount of any given wavelength, and if the two colors block any amount of it, then this wavelength will be subtracted from the result. The subtractive color model can be seen at work here in this printed image by Louis Ducos du Horon, inventor of the trichrome process. The trichrome process would start with 3 black and white negatives shot with 3 separate filters, green, orange, and violet. Horon would then create positives with complementary cyan, magenta, and yellow, superimposing them to create a full color image. These colors absorb or subtract red, blue, and green, respectively, making for the red, blue, and green filters used in the additive process. With the trichrome process, color images could now be printed on paper. J.C. Leblanc was the first to document the difference of behavior between additive and subtractive mixing. In 1720, this discovery was documented in Colorito, or the harmony of coloring in painting. A century later, in 1810, Goethe published the Theory of Colors, which is among the most significant texts on the subject. Consistent with Romanticism's subjective turn, Goethe argues that color is a subjective experience. In 1905, Albert Munsell publishes A Color, just 10 years after he publishes Atlas, and later yet another book on the subject titled Book of Color. Munsell created a color system for color mixing, where each color is specified based on 3 properties. The first property is hue, which specifies whether the color is primary red, yellow, blue, or something in between. The other property is value, which is how light or dark the color is. That is, how much white and black does it have. The last property is chroma, also known as saturation. It concerns how bright or vibrant or weak and strong the color is. Starting with the same value, the more of the same color is added, the more vibrant it is. Here's a simple color wheel with tints, tones, and shadows. This color wheel assumes that hue or color is constant in each slice of the pie. No matter what is your color system of choice, if you are doing subtractive mixing, the primary colors will always be red, yellow, and blue. A secondary color is created by mixing 2 primary colors, giving you a total of 3 complementary colors, orange, green, and violet. A tertiary color is a color made by mixing 1 primary color with 1 secondary color. There are 6 tertiary colors: yellow-orange, yellow-green, blue-green, blue-violet, red-violet, and red-orange. In compounding the names for the tertiary colors, place the primary name first. For instance, mixing red with orange will give you red-orange. In this color wheel, tints are any color or hue, primary, secondary, or tertiary, with added white. Shadows are any color with added black, and tones are any color with added gray. In 1911, Wassily Kandinsky publishes Concerning the Spiritual in Art, where he lays down his theories of color and synesthesia, along with his esoteric belief in color-shape pairings. Wassily Kandinsky, along with Josef Albers, Johannes Itten, and Paul Klee, taught at the tremendously influential Bauhaus School in Weimar. Color theory was an important subject in the preliminary course, and it was mostly developed by Johannes Itten. In 1973, Itten published The Art of Color, The Subjective Experience and Objective Rationale of Color. According to Itten, there are 7 types of color contrast: hue, light-dark, cold-warm, complementary, analogous, saturation, and extension. By the way, the Bauhaus is legend. It had huge influence on the arts as a whole, being matched only by the Black Mountain College in the second half of the 20th century. Here is a rather simple color wheel by Paul Klee, which the artist painted around 1923 to 1931. Notice how he used subtractive mixing, with blue, red, and yellow, as well as green, orange, and violet as primary and secondary colors, respectively. He also painted the tertiary colors. These are the smaller slices in the innermost circle. In the 1930s, Japanese artist and costume designer Sanzo Wada created this huge 6-volume publication titled Dictionary of Color Combination, with over 1,000 color combinations accounting for various different moods. In 1963, Josef Albers published Interaction of Color with his own studies on color. It demonstrates such principles as, quote, color relativity, intensity, and temperature, vibrating and vanishing boundaries, and the illusion of transparency and reversed grounds, unquote. In 2011, contemporary artist Taube Auerbach created the RGB Color Space Atlas, purportedly representing every possible color. The title is misleading, however. RGB stands for red, green, and blue, which is used to identify screen-based colors. If anything, it should be CMYK, which stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and key or black, which is used to identify colors for print. In addition, the concept of color space does not quite translate into RGB, nor CMYK for that matter, as these are color models instead. Be as it may, most of the time you won't need huge books with all colors imaginable and every color combination possible. For most purposes, it is quite enough to use a basic color scheme. Complementary colors are pairs of colors that are of the opposite hue in the color model. Examples of complementary colors are red and green, blue and orange, as well as yellow and purple. Why are complementary colors important? Because, when placed together, complementary colors make each other appear brighter, more intense. The high contrast creates a vibrant look, especially when used at full saturation. The shadow of an object will also contain its complementary color. For example, the shadow of a green apple will contain some red. Split complementary is almost the same as complementary colors, but uses the Y formula instead, a base color and the two colors adjacent to its complementary. Then, as important as complementary or split complementary is the analogous color scheme. Analogous colors are colors that are next to each other. They tend to match well and to create a comfortable color palette. There are a few other very common color schemes or harmonies in the color wheel, such as dyadic, triadic, and tetradic. Dyadic colors are colors that are separated by one color. Triadic colors are any three colors that form a triangle in the color wheel. This combination tends to be vibrant, even when using pale or unsaturated hues. The tetradic color scheme, on the other hand, combines two pairs of complementary colors. This combination produces a cool and warm effect. A square color scheme refers to a color combination where the distance between the colors in the wheel is the same. Monochromatic colors are colors of the same family or variations of the same hue. There are three types of variations of one single hue: tints, shades, and tones, which refer to the amount of white, black, and gray respectively. Remember when we talked about stippling? Pointillism is a similar technique, but different in many aspects. It is a style in which small dashes of pure color are applied repeatedly to form an image. The artist Georges Seurat was first to develop this style in late 19th century Paris. Pointillism is affiliated with Impressionism, and Seurat himself was an Impressionist. The term pointillism was first coined by art critics, people who talk about art, in the late 1880s. It was coined to ridicule the work of these artists, but it is now used without its original meaning. Many notable artists associated themselves with pointillism since it was first created by Georges Seurat. Henry Edmund Cross was one among them. Here is one of his paintings. It is titled Beach, Evening Effect, 1902. This painting demonstrates the functioning principle of this type of art. Owing much to Impressionism, pointillism is not so much about detailed and realistic representation of figures, but an attempt to capture moods and ambient light instead. Pointillism uses additive averaging mixing, which is when brightness is an average of each individual colors. In additive averaging, colors are intermixed like in simple additive mixing, but spread through a larger area. A good example of simple additive mixing would be computer screens. As to additive averaging mixing, here is a good example in Paul Signac's painting La Place des Lys, circa 1893. Notice the adjacent but non-overlapping dots of different colors in the zoomed image on the right. Here is another example. this time around an artwork by George Lemon titled Evening Study for the Muse, circa 1892. Notice how this painting is close to becoming abstract, meaning that recognizable figures almost completely disappear. Impressionism and pointillism were important steps towards and precursors of abstract art. And here is another example, an artwork by Camille Pissarro titled The Golden Horn Morning, 1907. We can still see recognizable figures in this painting, but if we zoom in, it becomes all about additive averaging, mixing, and color combinations, the goal being to recreate a certain ambient light and mood. You can almost feel the morning breeze just by looking at this painting.